Hi, my name is Alexa MacKenzie. This assignment is for EDU 1107. And for my micro-teaching assignment, I will be discussing Erikson's psychosocial development theory, of which there are 8 stages. And Erikson defines a psychosocial crises that you go through in each stage, the age group in which you experience this psychosocial crises, and then the virtue outcomes that are produced from this stage. The first psychosocial crises and the first stage he discusses is during infancy, ages 0 to 1.5 years. This is the trust versus mistrust phase. And during this stage, the infant is always looking to the person taking care of them for consistency and stability. If the care is consistent, predictable, and reliable, the infant will develop trust. Lack of support at infancy leads to the development of mistrust of the world around them, negatively affecting their confidence in the world and their ability to influence events in the future. The virtue outcome during this stage is hope. This comes from the security granted by stability, that if a crisis were to arise, there would be support, and without this, there is fear. The second stage is during early childhood, ages 1.5 to 3 years, and the psychosocial crises during this stage is autonomy versus shame. So in this stage, the child is discovering that they have skills and abilities. Erikson emphasizes the need for parents to allow the child to explore the limits of their abilities in an encouraging environment where failure is tolerant. If a child is supported in their increased independence, they become more confident and secure in their ability to survive in the world. The alternative is a lack of self-esteem and shame or doubt in their abilities. And the virtue outcome during this stage is will. So will is important because it ensures the need to try to learn things on their own, gain independence, and feel sure that they will be able to take care of themselves. The third stage is during the play age, and this is ages 3 to 5 years old. This is the psychosocial crises initiative versus guilt, as explained by Erikson. So this takes place during the rapidly developing stages in a child's life. Again, it's ages 3 to 5. The primary feature of this stage is the child's interaction with their peers, and playing is very important in this stage because it allows the child to explore their intrapersonal skills. So how do they communicate with other children and even adults at this stage? In the playing, children can become comfortable with their ability to make decisions and to lead others. And this is when that ability to lead really develops in children. This is a stage where the child will begin to ask a lot of questions, and guilt will start to occur if a child feels like they are being a nuisance for asking so many questions, and this can inhibit their creativity greatly. The virtue that we gain from this stage is purpose, and purpose is the result of beginning to realize their role in society with the implementation of social skills. The fourth stage is during school age, so ages 5 to 12. Some of us might teach this school age 5 to 12 in our own classrooms, and the psychosocial crises Erikson describes here is industry versus inferiority. So at this stage, the child is beginning to learn school-related skills such as reading, writing, and math. The child's peer group becomes a major source of self-esteem. So they start to base their self-esteem off of who they hang out with and who they hang around. They begin to compete in their competencies, possibly with their peer group, and they also develop a sense of pride. So how good are they at something specific? If the child's initiative in learning is not appreciated, so if it's not praised, they might begin to feel inferior and doubt their abilities. So the virtue that we get out of this stage is competency. And this is mostly school-related as they are searching for success in their newly taught abilities. The fifth stage, as defined by Erikson, is during adolescence, ages 12 to 18. which probably defines most of the children that we teach. It definitely is the category of which my children are in. And the psychosocial crises defined by Erikson is the ego identity versus role confusion. This is when they begin to form their identity within society. So who are you in society? And they begin to experiment with different lifestyles and will rebel if they are pressured into an identity that they don't want to be in. And I'm sure we can all relate to this stage, and often I have to remind myself that my kids are in this stage when they are starting to push my buttons a little bit. In this stage, children are beginning to look towards the future, and they're thinking about their future, and they are thinking about the goals that they want to accomplish. They want to feel like they belong to society, and fitting in is incredibly important during this stage. They want to feel like they belong. They begin to learn the roles of which they fit into, and they are accepting the changes that their bodies are going through. The virtue that we get from this stage is the fidelity virtue, being able to commit to oneself, commit oneself to others through accepting others, even though they may have differences. The sixth stage that Erikson defines is the young adult stage. This is ages 18 to 40. This is the psychosocial crises of intimacy versus isolation. So the focus here is on exploring relationships that lead toward longer commitments. So this is when you start making those commitments or searching for those commitments, particularly with people who are somebody different than your family. If during this stage you decide to avoid intimacy or fear commitment in relationships, this might lead to isolation. You can experience loneliness, and you might even start to experience depression. The virtue that Erikson describes here that we want to come out with is love. The seventh stage is during adulthood. This is ages 40 to 65. This is the generativity versus stagnation psychosocial crises. This is when we develop a sense of fitting into the bigger picture. This is when we start to establish our careers, we settle into our relationships, we begin our families, we try to see if we can give back to society in some way. And if we do not do these things, we might feel like we are stagnant and unproductive and like we haven't accomplished anything. So what the virtue is here is care, and we want to be able to be part of the world that we live in. We want to contribute to that world, and we want to feel like we care. The final stage is the ego integrity versus despair psychosocial crises, and this happens with maturity, so ages 65 plus. And in this final phase of life, final stage, we contemplate our accomplishments, we develop integrity if we feel that we have lived a successful life. And the virtue we want to come out with here is wisdom. So do we have the ability to look back on our life with a sense of closure, and we do not fear death? So the questions I want to pose to you here now for you to answer in our conversation and discussion would be, what stage of development do the students you teach fall into, and what characteristics of that stage do you think they reflect the most? Additionally, I want to know, what stage are you currently in, and do you think you're on your way to achieving that specific virtue? So, for example, I'm in the young adult phase, the intimacy versus isolation phase, and I believe I'm on my way to the virtue of love. And lastly, how would you critique Erikson's theory? So what did you think was maybe a little off about it, or what do you think he explains really well? Thanks for watching, and I look forward to the discussion.